What are some of the Panthers' top options at 8? I'll tell you right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, the part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, because on Fridays throughout the offseason, I'm right here answering your weekly Friday mailbag questions. And the way you get those questions into me is by either adding me or DMing me over on Twitter at Julian Council, or simply adding me over on Blue Sky at Julian Council to get in for the weekly Friday mailbag right here on Locked On Panthers. And back again on another Monday, the final Monday here in March, final day in March. And then we are going to be counting down the days once again, 24 days from now, the 2025 NFL Draft up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The Panthers will be on the clock at 8th overall. And got somebody on today's show to discuss what Carolina may do there and some of their options later on in the draft at receiver, at corner, and some other draft strategy that Carolina potentially could deploy here in the coming weeks as they head into the 2025 NFL Draft. And Keith Sanchez, Locked On NFL Draft, is our guest. Had him on the show a couple of years ago. Does a great job with Damian Parson. We had on a couple weeks ago here on the show discussing the NFL Draft here on Locked On, and also does work with the Draft Network. He is a 2019 national champion, was on Ed Ogeron's staff there when Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and that ridiculously talented LSU team went undefeated, beating Clemson in the national title back in New Orleans. So he was on that staff. So the man knows ball, and he was nice enough to join us on today's show. And this is going to be what the plan is for the most part this month. I'm going to try to have as many guests on the show as possible. Already got somebody lined up on Wednesdays. So Mondays and Wednesdays are going to try to be guest spots. Fridays will be the mailbag. And then Tuesday, Thursday, maybe me talking, maybe more guests. I'm trying to get as many people, as many opinions on this show as we try to break down this draft coming up here in a couple of weeks. So Keith Sanchez, Locked On NFL Draft, is our guest today, and I hope you guys enjoy it. That coming up right here on Locked On Panthers. Back here on Locked On Panthers, and as promised, one of the hosts of the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, Keith Sanchez. He is a part of that 2019 LSU National Championship staff and does a great job for us covering the NFL Draft. Keith, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm in Panthers country, so I'm doing good right now.
Absolutely. You know what? Speaking of that 2019 national championship, I saw a graphic, I guess it would have been like 2 weeks ago, whenever T. Higgins and Jamar Chase were reintroduced, their brand new deals up there in Cincinnati. And they were putting the graphic up there of Jamar, of Joe Burrow, of Justin Jefferson, and how much money they made so far in the league. So it's like, it's still crazy just how talented that team was. But let's not even forget about that. Like in that game, you also had T. Higgins. You also had Trevor Lawrence. You also had A.J. Terrell, just an insane amount of talent on the field. It's still crazy to think about just how good that LSU team was and how good that Clemson team was, who was, I think, on a 29-game winning streak until y'all took them down there in New Orleans.
Yeah, 100%. I go to that one, then I also go to the Alabama game, right? When you talk about Tua and Patrick Surtain and Devontae Smith and, just Najee Harris. It was just ridiculous, right? Probably 25 kids or young men that's playing in the NFL right now. That's probably an NFL game.
Yeah, now that's insane. But they talk about that all the time, being like some of these SEC games or NFL games, like, maybe like if Georgia's playing Bama or LSU when LSU's up, but like, let's not be acting like Kentucky, Mississippi State's out here being an NFL game. But crazy talent that's come out of there recently. So, I mean, you know what talent looks like, man. And the Panthers, they need talent, clearly, after last season where things didn't get out to a great start, but they turned things around. Looks like Bryce Young is at least in position to maybe be that guy down the road. and they were pretty aggressive during free agency and adding to the defensive side of the ball, but I still believe that they got to do that. So looking at 8, that's where they're standing right now. I keep seeing, speaking of talent, speaking of the SEC, Jalon Walker from Georgia, whether he's a linebacker, an edge rusher, whatever it be, I see everybody from Mike Tannenbaum over ESPN, to Mel Kiper, to Daniel Jeremiah, all across the board saying that's the pick at 8. What is it about him and about Carolina's needs that have everybody in consensus right now that Jalon Walker should be that pick at 8?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go 2 parts with this question, right? So
All right.
first, when I first seen Jalon Walker was over the summer last year. Kind of relatively unknown guy, right? And I remember watching him. I think it was the SEC championship game, and just how he closed and made the tackle on Jalen Milrow. And I'm like, I don't know who this 11 is, but he can play football, right? And then you just watched him throughout the year. This year, and the one thing, first of all, the talent that he is. The talent that he is that he can play stack linebacker for you, so he can fill a linebacker need. But I tweeted this out, and this was the beginning of the season. I said that the 2 best edge rushers in this class may both be hybrid linebackers, meaning Abdul Carter and Jalon Walker. And I still feel that same exact way now, that if you put him on the edge, his first step explosiveness, how he uses his hands, being able to collapse the pocket, and his pursuit and high motor, he can get the job done. And I think about teams that don't necessarily win a lot, right? And the Carolina Panthers are right there, that from week in to week out, losing hurts, right? Because first of all, football is a physical sport. But then once you get to week 10 and week 12, losing hurts. And being able to show up week in and week out, that's your culture guys, right? Guys that play their high motor, they play full out, right? They're full out in practice, they're full out in games. That's who Jalon Walker is. And you're talking about adding him with a combination of a JC Horn. Now you're starting to develop a winning culture and hoping that it bleeds over to everybody else on the defense, plus the guys on the offensive side of the football, that, you know what, no matter what happens, we don't quit. We're the Carolina Panthers, and we're going to play football.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've heard about his leadership down there in Athens. You know, it may not be carrying off the field with some of the speeding stuff going down there all the time with Kirby and the dogs, but, you know, staying on the field, though, in between the white lines, absolutely. Like, that's kind of guy that led by example. And Dave Canales talks all about those tone setters. Those guys are culture guys. And I mean, he's a guy from right up the road, Salisbury, North Carolina, just north of Charlotte. Right, so I guess, I mean, northeast of Charlotte, northeast. So that makes sense that at least a local guy who, you're right, kind of fell under the radar. The fact that he's now right here in position to potentially be taken at 8. And when you look at him, because you talk about he can play edge, he can play linebacker. You say him and Abdul Carter, both those are kind of hybrid guys. Do you see him more as being a primary edge rusher or more being kind of like that every down inside linebacker? Or, I mean, I'm curious, like, how do you really see like a team might implement him, you know, as far as a rookie goes? Of course, like going down the road, maybe he can be, you know, 2 downs, the first, second down, he's inside of obvious pass situations on the edge. How do you see him kind of coming into the league next year and likely what his best usage would be?
Yeah, so I think his usage rate is so clear because George already did it with him. And that's let him play some stack linebacker and then let him walk down to the edge also. So I know you kind of want me to pick a clear defined position, but I think that he's already
tell me the truth, man. Just tell me how you feel. That's all I want to know.
Yeah, he's already been kind of playing this role of doing both. And it's because if you watch Georgia defense, they're so multiple in what they do, right? Like going back to like Trayvon Walkers and Michael Williams and all these guys, is that they play everywhere. And so I think asking him to do the same exact thing, I don't think the learning curve is going to be that steep for him, because you're not asking him to do something that he wasn't already doing. So I would project that he just kind of picks up where he left off in college and he just brings that back home to Carolina.
Yeah, he did say at his pro day, I think it might have been a week or 2 ago, that a lot of guys are versatile, but not a lot of guys do multiple things well. He does. Yeah. So I like that confidence. And from like what you're saying, what everybody else is saying, he's not lying at all. So Carolina could absolutely use somebody like him on a defense where, as you mentioned, J.C. Horn extended, got Derek Brown coming off of that meniscus tear. He's a Pro Bowler last time he was healthy, fully in 2023. So it's not like there's not talent and a good foundation potentially for him to step into. They just got a lot of things to address throughout the roster, even though I think they're a lot closer than they were, say, this time last year coming off a 2-15 season. Let me ask you this about 8. When looking at Carolina, I feel like edge is what their need should be. Dan Morgan, the GM, came out last week on Wednesday talking about how he feels that they have flexibility at that spot and throughout the draft. I still think, I mean, you look at it, Clowney, okay. I mean, been a solid player. He's been in a league for a decade, so you can't say anything bad about him, but I just don't see him at this point being a difference maker. Want him, got a little bit of juice, but I question, is he anybody on a scouting report that's concerning you? And Pat Jones coming over as well. So to me, that feels like the top need. If it's not edge, what would you think, and who would you think maybe would fit them at 8 there instead?
Instead of edge rusher?
Yeah.
I would go wide receiver, and that's having a big picture conversation. Is that a couple years ago, the Carolina Panthers drafted Bryce Young, right? Now we're going into year 3 of this experiment. And I understand taking the Jalon Walker for all the reasons I just outlined with culture. I think that this is the year you need to know if Bryce Young is your guy or not, right? Like you can't walk into year 4, especially with all the extensions and things like that, right? The 5th year options and things like that. Like you want to know if that's your guy or not. And I think if the Carolina Panthers can walk away from the 2025 NFL season and say that Bryce Young, we've done everything we could for him as far as surrounding him with talent, and we got good results or bad results, but we know what we have. I think that's a win in itself. So if Bryce Young plays really well because he's surrounded with weapons, you have a win. You have a franchise quarterback. If you surrounded him with weapons and he doesn't play that well, then now you know I may potentially have to move on. So I go wide receiver and go all in with supporting Bryce Young with the assets he needs.
I want to know who potentially might make sense there, and maybe even later on we'll talk about wide receiver, because I do agree with you that they need to add and to continue to see what they got in Bryce. So let's take a quick pause. We'll come back here, and we'll talk more about that here on Locked On Panthers. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on a few underdogs, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on, like Duke clearly winning the national championship. If you have not noticed, they're the best team in the country, unfortunately. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, when you win, when we all win, we get paid instantly, no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right, back here on Locked On Panthers, Julian Council, joined by Keith Sanchez, one of the hosts of Locked On NFL Draft. Check him out on Twitter at The Talent Code. Check out his co-host, Damian Parson, and him over on YouTube, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, like you listen to this one, breaking down the draft as we are getting close to it. Only a couple of weeks away, and I'm ready for the answers. I'm sure y'all ready for the answers as well, as you'll spend a long time talking about these hypotheticals. I don't know how you do it, but I appreciate you for being here, man. So we were talking about, before taking that pause, about Panthers potentially getting a receiver there at 8. But the names that I've seen that would make sense in the first round receivers, from what I've seen, is Venteiro McMillan from Arizona. Yep. Travis Hunter, if you want to throw him out there as well, whatever he's going to play. I mean, he's not going to be there at 8, so it is not really worth talking about. But Venteiro McMillan, Travis Hunter, but he's going to be gone. I've seen Matthew Golden after a strong finish to the season at Texas last year and a strong combine, and I've seen Emeka Egbuka. Those have been the 3 guys I've mainly seen there at receiver in the first round. Either one of those dudes make sense at 8, or are we talking about maybe if they trade back, they kind of could find a guy there later on in the first round, and maybe in the 20s, or what am I trying to say? The teens. There we go.
It happened like that sometimes, man. It happened like that sometimes. But now, to answer your question, I would go with Matthew Golden. I wouldn't be afraid to draft him as a top 10 pick. This is a guy. So I scouted him over the summer, right, just to kind of walk you through the process. And he was at University of Houston first. And when I watched him, I gave him a high second round grade coming from Houston. I'm like, this guy can play football. I liked him a lot. And then what people have to understand is that because I feel like he's kind of a late riser and late bloomer. And so some people are hesitant on Matthew Golden, right? But you have to think about the Texas season, right? That it was Quinn Ewers, right? And remember, Isaiah Bond was there also, and Isaiah was supposed to be the guy. So when you think about designing an offense, the coaching staff, they designed plays for Isaiah Bond. Then probably secondary was Matthew Golden. And then Quinn Ewers had the injuries and brought in Arch. So I thought there was a lot of influx. But you see, when he became the primary guy at the back end of the season, that this guy was highly productive, instinctive. He ran a 4.29. He could run routes. He's explosive. I like him. And I like him for Bryce because you go back to Alabama that year. I think it was the year they lost to Georgia in the SEC championship or the playoffs. I can't remember.
It would have been a title game because they beat the brakes off of them in Atlanta.
In the SEC. So, yeah. It was the national championship. That's exactly what it was. But remember, they were coming off of John Mechie and Bolt Jamison Williams getting injured at some point, right? And I think what Bryce did well was those vertical field structures, or those guys that can run deep overs, those speed guys. He was able to get them the football. So I think Matthew Golden could play perfect. And I like Teodoro McMillan a lot, but I think you have a similar style player in Xavier Legette already. So I would go Matthew Golden.
Yeah, and you bring a good point, because I think really since like Jamison Williams went down in the national title game, like the next year, Bryce had Jahmyr Gibbs coming over from Georgia Tech as a running back, who also, as we've seen, is a great pass catcher. Was at Bama, was at Georgia Tech, now great in Detroit. And then after that, like, he didn't really have that much talent.
I think it might have been Jermaine Burton for a year, maybe, and that was it.
And in that year, I didn't feel like, I thought it was the year after when Burton really kind of burst onto the scene. Yeah, because like that year, he didn't really have anybody. And people were talking about, oh, I don't know, man. That's what that great. Like, man, y'all watch the games. Like, Bama's offensive line's not that great. They got a Vanderbilt transfer. Like, it's Gibbs, a dude from Georgia Tech. Like, that's basically all he's got right now. And I think like Cameron Latu might have been the other dude he kind of had to throw to. So he has not really had that kind of receiver. So I mean, I liked what I saw from Golden, because you're right. It was supposed to be
Isaiah
Bond from Alabama, and then he got banged up, and at the end of the season really went to the playoff. It was Golden. You look at that Ohio State game, once Golden went out, that kind of hurt what Texas was trying to do offensively. I mean, they weren't going to beat Ohio State anyways, but that certainly did not give them a chance in that game, if we're being honest. So I wouldn't hate that at all, if that's what they want to do. And it is interesting to hear that you think he could be a top 10 kind of dude. If they wait until like the second round, like, how good do you think this receiver class is? Because I don't necessarily love these dudes that much.
Yeah, that's this wide receiver class, I would say, is not as deep, and especially for the immediate sense in which you're asking right now. Like I said, when you're trying to find answers, right? And I wouldn't want to wait to the second round and then draft the wide receiver and then hope that he can develop into something. And we've been here already with the whole Jonathan Mingo experiment, right? Like, this is not that, right? Drafting a guy and trying to plug him in and asking him to do more in the NFL than what he did in college. I don't want to do that, especially with how fragile this Bryce Young situation as far as getting answered. So I wouldn't, if you want a wide receiver, I wouldn't wait to the second round. If you're talking about trying to draft a potential 1 or 1.5 to kind of, 1A, 1B with Xavier Legette, I wouldn't wait, because I just think that it's too important at this moment.
How many ones you think are in this draft class?
2 to 3. Oh, don't quote me on this. You're going to have people coming back and tag me in 5 years.
Hey, don't worry. I'm not going to put it on social media. They're going to come find it, though.
So let's say this. The obvious ones, right? Of the big names, of the top 10 names that are clearly talked about that I think can thrive in multiple situations, 2 to 3. And those guys are the top guys: Teodoro McMillan, Matthew Golden, Travis Hunter, and I think Travis should play wide receiver. Those are the 3 guys that I think are the ones.
Why do you think Travis should play wide receiver?
Man, I think he's more impactful. And when I watch the film, this is what I see. I see a guy I'm going to talk about cornerback. I see a guy that's extremely talented, but corner is one of those positions that is hard to make the backup, because it's so technical. It's so detailed and refined in your process. And I think that not only that, so that curve to getting to that part, but then also, if you want to impact guys, sometimes you could just throw away from him, right? And he doesn't impact the game. And I think that Travis Hunter is special as a wide receiver. Like, he reminds me of, and people, this was kind of tough because he didn't have the greatest start to his career, but he just reminded me of Jerry Jeudy. Like, and think about the excitement that Jerry Jeudy had coming out of Alabama. And I think he's proved this year that it wasn't his fault that he wasn't that productive. He had a quarterback to throw him the football, right? So I think Travis Hunter can definitely make a lot of plays as a wide receiver.
Yeah, man won the Biletnikoff for a reason. I mean, he should also won the. I mean, I want it no shade to Jahdae Barron, but he was not the best corner in college football last year, in my opinion.
He wasn't. No, he was not.
I don't know how you feel. Like, I don't know how. I just don't understand how Travis Hunter can win best receiver in college football, win the Heisman, but then he's not the Thorpe Award winner. I don't know what was going on there with the voting.
He plays both sides of the football. It makes no sense.
It's crazy, but he's not coming to Carolina. So maybe they trade up and go get him, but he ain't gonna be there at 8. So I was just curious, because I hadn't heard a lot of people say that they think he should be a receiver. I just keep going back to, like, man, that week 1 game, I know it's North Dakota State, but that catch to seal that game in the end
Oh, that
zone,
was ridiculous.
ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
That's just, you don't see dudes making plays like that. So it's kind of crazy. It's like, oh, now he's gonna be like corner. It's like that guy who could catch the ball like that's gonna be the corner. Okay, sure. All right. So getting back to it, one last thing I got for you, man. Like safety, Carolina needs them. Looking at things right now, they got Trevon Moehrig from the Raiders. They got Demani Richardson, who, as an undrafted free agent, was able to start late last season. And then they brought back Nick Scott. They got 3. That's it. And Dan Morgan, Panthers GM, president of football operations, last Wednesday was pretty straightforward, saying, like, we got to add there. We're pretty thin there. So it feels like they may get a vet before the draft, but certainly from things I've been told, they're looking at a safety in the draft. I don't know if they're going to get – I don't think at 8 – there's anybody. I know Nick Eamon down there in Columbia at South Carolina has played well. I know Malachi Starks from Georgia. I haven't heard much about Xavier Watts recently from Notre Dame, but what do you think might be a good time, who might be available, whether it be late in the second round at 57 or right there in the third round at 74, possibly, that Carolina could target if they're trying to get somebody who can come in at safety and play immediately?
Yeah, so my 2 nickel hybrid safety guys, right?
Okay.
Would be Billy Bowman Jr., the DB from Oklahoma, and then Andrew Mukuba, the safety from Texas. And I put those guys in a bucket of safety hybrid nickel because that's what they do, right? They'll cover the slot wide receiver, but they can't play safety. They'll get in the box, they'll tackle, and also they're extreme players like in the past, right? They're talking about instinctual guys. I'll tell all your listeners, go watch the film, right? Go cut the highlights on YouTube, and you can see these guys making plays left and right. And then maybe the true safety body, and this guy's a little bit thin. He's coming off an injury. Kevin Winston Jr. From Penn State. I like him also, and he's probably going to be more of either free safety, strong safety type of football player, but healthy, man. This guy can roll. I like him a lot. He could trigger from depth, make good tackles. He's physical. He has length, range. I like him a lot.
Yeah, and like in 2023, Winston was one of like the top 5 graded safeties looking at PFF. What was the injury this past fall?
I think it was a lower body. So I don't quote me on this because I hate to throw injuries on guys. I want to say it was a partial ACL. Might have been. I'm pretty sure it was a lower body injury though.
All right. Well, that Penn State defense was awesome. I mean, obviously Oklahoma. I mean, that's the only thing Oklahoma did well this past year. Right. And Billy Bowman Jr. I mean, he's a smaller kind of dude. He's like 5'11". I mean, he might actually be like 5'10", really, right?
Yeah, I think he's 5'10", around that 190-ish range. But like I said, an instinctual, explosive guy. You're talking about just getting his hands on the football and making plays. I think he just finds a way to do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't hate any pick off of that Brent Venables defense. And then, I mean, Mukuba is probably a guy who was recruited by Venables when he was still
because he was at Clemson. Yep.
Yeah, Clemson. And Panther fans been saying, I mean, at least Clemson/Panther fans been like, y'all never drafted no Clemson Tigers before. Okay, well, this one counts because Mukuba, he was only in Austin for like maybe a year. I don't even know he was there for a full year, y'all. So if he comes to Carolina, there you go. You got the Clemson Tiger finally. But Keith, appreciate, man, the insight, especially there at A on Jalon Walker on the receivers and also on these safeties. Check him out over on Twitter at the Talent Code. Also check out his podcast, Locked On NFL Draft, over with Damian Parson, who joined us a couple weeks ago, as they're going to be breaking down the draft from all angles over the next couple of weeks here as we count down the days to Green Bay in the 2025 NFL Draft. Keith, appreciate you as always, man. Take care.
Oh, no problem.
All right, we'll take a quick pause, come back, and wrap up the show here on Locked On Panthers. Thanks again to Keith Sanchez of Locked On NFL Draft coming up here on today's show, breaking down the draft coming up here in 24 days' time, and cannot wait to get there again. Going to have a ton of guests here over the next couple of weeks. Got Vashti Hurt coming up from Carolina Blitz on Wednesday, so excited to talk to her about what she thinks about this offseason so far, what Carolina potentially should do in the draft, and got a couple of people I'm trying to line up here in the next couple of weeks as well. So again, trying to get as many guests as possible. Of course, I'll be up here on Fridays answering mailbag questions. There'll be days, maybe on Tuesdays and Thursdays, where I'm up here just talking about potential scenarios, but I'm trying to tap into as many people out there here in the network as well. Maybe hit up some of the college guests and get their thoughts on some potential prospects who may be coming to Carolina. Now, certainly plenty of the guys we talk about will not be coming, but definitely want to talk to the Georgia host. I think we have one. I don't know if we do, but I want to talk to him about Michael Williams, about, of course, Jalon Walker. Want to talk about the Arizona host, about Taylor McMillan and all that. So we'll see what happens here, but I'm planning on getting as many people as possible to try to break things up and know with the draft. It's it's the same conversation over and over and over again, and not a ton of new things happening news-wise. So trying to find as many people as possible to break up the monotony of me, especially just talking about the draft. That's what I'm trying to do, try to make the show as best as it can be here in the coming month here as April starts tomorrow. So excited about all that in the weeks come here on Locked On Panthers. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe or follow the show free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter at Julian Council and Blue Sky at Julian Council, where on Fridays I answer your weekly Friday mailbag questions, either at me or DM me on Twitter or at me on Blue Sky to get those questions into me right now. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding, and I will talk to y'all on Tuesday.